Before you continue with this video, make sure that you have read or reviewed the handout that goes with this third part of our video. So the third video on the introduction section, which is introduction from an article on research ethics. So if you haven't, pause the video or stop it and just go back and print out that handout or have it somewhere where you can read it on a tablet or wherever. And make sure you review it a little bit before you watch the video. So this study is a cross-sectional survey study to assess prevalence and attitudes regarding research misconduct among investigators in the Middle East. Bunch of authors. So here is the introduction. So again, the text is kind of small, so hopefully you have the introduction, the printed handout right with you. If not, again, pause and go and print it out or look at, upload it next on the screen or wherever you can see the text a little more clearly. So this introduction, similar to the one of the study in drug safety on the diabetes and cardiovascular and TZD stuff, has also 5 paragraphs. And it's kind of funny, if you go through a lot of these empirical articles in a variety of STEM journals, you'll find that most of them are around 5 paragraphs. So there's something to this 5-paragraph structure that's really common. Sometimes they're shorter, but in most articles they're between 3 to 5 paragraphs. So anyways, this introduction is 5 paragraphs. The first 3 do the same thing as the first 3 did in the previous video. In the introduction section of the previous video, they established what we know about this topic, what is known about the topic, and therefore create a context for the study. So the first paragraph gives a broad overview of the context for the study, namely the issue of research misconduct. And it starts off with a typical phrase, a typical rhetorical move during the past few decades, so for the past 5 years, over the past decade. Whatever the phrase is, the temporal phrase is, that's a really great way to start sometimes an introduction if you're providing an overview of the literature or what has been done, during, over, something like that. So during the past 2 decades, studies documenting the extent of research misconduct have led to concerns, yada, yada, yada. The Office of Research Integrity defines misconduct as follows. Other definitions are broader. So again, this is a broad context for the study. Research misconduct is an issue, and this is what it actually is. Then the next paragraph gives further narrows down the context. And again, remember, we're looking at this triangle structure for the introduction. So we're starting off very broad, research misconduct. Now we get a little narrower in the second paragraph. So namely that existing data on research misconduct comes from Western countries. And the focus in this paragraph is on one particular study. It starts off with data regarding the prevalence of research misconduct, mostly comes from Western countries, in a survey, and then comes the example from the study by Martinson et al. Okay, so some specific data from that study, Martinson and colleagues. Here it starts off. The sentence starts off with that. So it focuses on one particular study in this Western context that was done in 2005. So again, we're narrowing it further down. Existing data comes from Western countries. That's the main argument here. The next paragraph, number 3, kind of continues that narrative of data coming just from Western studies, so additional support for the point made. So it starts off with the name of the author of the second study that really emphasizes this. Finelli conducted a meta-analysis. Again, meta-analyses are always great because they review a large body of research. So citing them in your literature review intro is always great if they exist for your topic. So this meta-analysis and has found yada yada, and again, all the data, the more specific data here, but again, it's additional support for this point, namely that this studies on research misconduct mostly come from Western countries. So we're narrowing it down a little further, adding to this narrowing down. Then we go to paragraph 4, and paragraph 4, as you might remember, really is supposed to identify the research gap. So the 4th paragraph starts off with similar studies showing the extent of questionable research in non-Western countries have recently been performed, but are few in number. So right here, so the hint, hey, these do exist, but guess what? There aren't as many as needed. And of course, we know this study tries to fill that gap by presenting some some research based on questionnaire-based research on this particular topic. But it lists also, this paragraph lists the ones that have been conducted so far, namely a questionnaire-based study in India, then there's a study from Nigeria, and then there's a follow-up report from the folks who've done the original study from Nigeria. So, and again, little information about all of these just to give that context of there is some stuff on non-Western countries, but there isn't as much. And so again, we're narrowing down further here in our triangle, right? So we're getting to the research gap. Then, of course, the last paragraph. Oh, and before we go on, so again, that first sentence really clearly signals to the reader, it's a great rhetorical move, signals to the reader, hey, this is the research gap, because it says, hey, there are these studies that do this, but are few in number, right? That qualifier, but a few in number, is a really clear indicator of there's something missing and we need more. And then the last paragraph is a clear statement, includes a clear statement of the study's aims. The aims of the study were to obtain this and this and this, and to determine investigators' attitudes, this and this and this. The one thing that's missing here is a short sentence on the methodology, sentence on how, like that they're using a survey and so on. That could have been included here, but it doesn't necessarily lead to this introduction being incomplete or incomprehensible. But if I were to work with the writers of this introduction, they would ask for my advice. I would be like, hey, why don't you include a sentence on the how? What is your methodology? How are you planning on meeting those aims? Okay. And you might notice also this last paragraph is very short. It's basically just one sentence, the aim statement. So it would benefit from maybe another sentence on the methodology to round this up. And again, moving into the specific part of the triangle, namely on the particular focus of the study and how it's going to be, how the authors achieved their conclusions, or with what kind of means they came to their conclusions. So you now have seen two examples for introductions. There's a bunch of other handouts and PowerPoints and material for you to review for the rest of the section before you move on, either completing the worksheet, or if you have an introduction that you want to submit in lieu of the worksheet, you can do that as well. And then the second assignment later this week will be about comparing two different introductions and actually identifying some of the rhetorical moves. So I'm looking forward to reading your work.